Welcome back to Pro Shop. In this video, I'm going to be measuring up the wheels for the RBEH. I've got the tires, I've got the tire jigs, and I'm going to show you how to use them. Then I'm going to go and finish the last of the rust in this car. It's been a big job, but I'm finally at the end of it. Then at the end of the video, a new project has just arrived, so I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough about what that is. So stick around, hope you enjoy it. Now, I know I said at the start of the last video that I was going to work on these drains and all that rusty section. However, I got carried away doing the fuel tank and the exhaust and working on the old EH. So this week, I'm going to start on that. But first, I just want to set up these tires on the tire jigs just so I can get the wheels and start ordering them. So that's why I've bolted up the guards and the valance just to get the clearances right. So I had the springs out of the front because we used the shocks and springs from the front in the rear because we didn't have the rear ones just yet because we didn't know the right height and I wanted to get all that right. So it's still, the clearances are going to be all the same. It's just the length are going to be different. So there's plenty of adjustment here for that. So I'll do the rears first. I'll just show you, I've already got one on the car. I'll just show you the one off. Whatever size wheel you're going to run, we've got two 7.5s in the back. So they're going to be a 10-inch. So this is set at a 8.5. So now we'll move this down and I'll widen this section and then drop it in. And then you set them all on 18 because these are 18s obviously. And then with these ones done up, but then these wing nuts loose, that can move this up and down. So that sets the offset like this. This is all bolted up, but these are still loose. So I can't do it with one hand, but you can slide this in and out. So I'll do the other side, put it on, put it back up, and put the shocks in, get the height that I want, adjust the pan hard so this is even, and then take some measurements. And the measurements are taken from this little point here to that point back there, and that should be the backspace. All right, so I've set this up, both of them, so there's a nice gap here and on the inside. And I just measured from that point there to the back one, and I just kept on spinning it around and did the next one, going around. So they're all even until they're all 165 mil, and I just made sure that that didn't change, that gap. And do that on the other side, and we're done. So the back's pretty easy. It's the front that take a little bit more work just because of the steering. And yeah, I'll do that now. So the back's done. I've got those measurements on. Got the old wheels back on because I just want to reposition the car. These the hoist arms are in the way of the wheel going on. So this was obviously set up for when the motor was in. It is a bit back heavy, and that's why I've strapped it and clamped it down, just in case while I'm working on the back, it kind of lifts up and comes off the front. So I'll just drop it down and bring it forward and get these arms under the chassis rails. Yeah, should balance it out, and then I can fit these wheel jigs. Okay, so I've pushed this up as far as I can go, and I've even backed the spring off to compress it as much as I can. It is pushing up that hard that I don't want to push it off the hoist, even though the strap's holding it down. That's about as far as I'm going to go, but it's not enough because the wheels aren't tucking in the guard, which is what I want. I want to get it up another couple of inches, and then I can turn it left and right and check the clearances before I get the backspace. So I think I'm gonna have to take the spring out. All right, this is where I would love for it to sit, but there are a lot of problems with it up this far. First of all, there's this little bump in the guard, so I'm gonna have to cut that off, and I am going to roll the guards, but you can't get too much out of these because of this return sweep. So if it doesn't hit here, it'll definitely hit on the inside of this. So I can roll them, or I will roll them just a little bit. But being up this high, you know, obviously when you turn left and right, it's gonna scrub just here and here. But that's not the main problem. The main problem is how far the control arms are out. So you can see how high that sits. There's not really much room for it to go higher. And for ride height, you don't want this thing, the bottom arm running up, because there's gonna be major camber. Yeah, it might turn really well, but driving is gonna be terrible. So it's gonna come down more like this side. Straight arm, there's plenty of movement still. And yes, okay, it's not tucked up, but this is sort of where we're gonna work with. Yeah, but for now, I'm gonna cut those bumps off. All right, got the guard rolled, and it's got a little bit more room now. Still pretty tight, but this is what we're gonna do. Deal with these tolerances. It's nice up in there. There's plenty of room around that. It is tight here. And on the other side, it's tight up there. This is as low as it can go and still get full steering. Yeah, okay, well, I've got those measurements. So now we can order the wheels, and I can go on to pulling the front end off and fixing those rusty bits. And finally, I just wanted to check ride height. So it's not 100% on the ground, it's about 15 mil off, but I just put these blocks just to hold the spring compressed, and the back is sitting on the ground. So we're about 15-20 mil up at the front. Turn it full lock and still just check clearances. All right, I'm done with these. They're pretty good. If people want to know anything about them, verifiedfabrication.com. Anyway, I'm going to, I think I've sorted out the problem. I was getting a very irregular spark and sometimes no spark. So I think it's the battery. Even though it was cranking and was cranking a lot, it's cranking really well. When I was cranking it, it will just drop down to 10, sometimes below 10. So I just went and got a new battery. I use these, the Full Rivers, they're really, really good. This has been in the car for a long time and it hasn't really been driven. It's just been on charge from time to time. And it's good because they come in this metal case, and all I did was just weld tags onto it and then bolt that up through the floor where it is. I've got it tucked up. You won't really see because it's dark up in here. Put in this cavity here, and then I just bolt it through the floor here. So I'll chuck that in now, and fingers crossed, we can go for a test drive. Okay, we got 12.9 volts. Come on. Oh yeah. Well, looks like that was it. Ready to start. Got all my tools ready, nice and neat. And a lot of this work will never be seen because it's all behind paneling. But you can see I've started here. I'm going to drill this drain instead of using that as the drain to kind of fall out the back. I'm going to cut this out and weld this panel to this, and then have the water come, that'll be flat. And the water will just come straight down through that hole and then straight out the bottom. So I'll cut all of that section out, cut this little guy out, and then I can get in there, clean it all up. It's not too bad in there, it's sort of just surface rust like this. It's only the corners that are in this bit that's rusted out. And I'll just get a tube right through there, weld top and bottom, so the water can just flow out, come into there, and sort of go down the hole there. That's the idea behind it anyway. Okay, that wasn't too bad. There was a little bracket here which kind of went across and up that the nuts for the bumper bar were welded to, so I had to unpick that. I didn't need that there, and it's just gonna maybe cause rust later. At least now this is all clear. I can get in there and sort of wire brush it and paint it and seal it up, so that will be fine. As long as there's no, maybe this little section, maybe I have to take a little bit more out of that, where this panel and this panel overlap, which you can get in there. So I'll clean that up a little bit more. Same within here. That probably, because it's behind this panel, looks like that. I'm gonna say it's gonna be all out there. So what I'll do is weld this up and then cut that piece off. Probably not going to make that much of a difference. I'm just covering my ass that rust won't continue, but I will prime this and then drip check it with silicone before the paint goes on, so water won't be able to go down in there. It will drift off and go down that drain hole. So yeah, little patches, little patch around there, and then plate that up and then go on with the other side. So here's just a little tip say you've got a join like this and you've got to clean the paint off, or it's already on the car and you just kind of can't get in there. You've got a wire brush trying to get in there, but it just doesn't get in that corner. Even your hand brush sort of leaves a bit. You want to get all that paint out. So one thing I use is just my air hacksaw with a dull blade, and then you can kind of get right into the corner. And you get that paint off. So that's what I'm doing in here, because the wire brush doesn't really get down in there, but this does. So I can just clean in there to weld it. Okay, so now that I welded that up, ground it smooth, I cut that little piece out, got rid of the spot welds and cut out, and it's looking good. It looks like the rust was only in this section behind that panel, and all here has been protected. So I was going to continue and go along and weld and cut that whole panel off, but I don't think I'll need to. I'll clean this up, and yeah, that's good news. So that can be primed and sealed in there. Okay, let's keep going. With all that done, welded, cleaned up, I'm gonna start patching this in. I've already primed it with the weld through primer, and I just wanted to make sure, because I had a look at this, how flat this is. And it's nice and flat along this side, but this side comes up, but I've got to bring that down before I weld a plate in here. All right, all that rust is done. That bit there, I've got the drain running through down the bottom, and it's all painted. I'm ready to put this piece in. Got the nuts welded to the back. So I'll weld that in, and then I'm going to do the same patch on this side, and then I'm going to put a panel, 3mm panel, to reinforce this, and weld nuts to the back of that, so then I can bolt this up as well, instead of having to bolt through here, and then I can weld them up so water won't go in there. So one side's done, drain, all the rusty holes are welded in. So I'm not gonna weld this panel in just yet, not until I get all of the guards and stuff on, because you can see the amount of flex in here. And if I weld this panel in while it's in or out, that's just gonna change the gap of the guard to the bonnet. So I'll do this side, and I'll put the Clecos back in. If anyone knows, like if I don't, I always mention these Clecos. These are just these little spring-loaded pin clamps, I suppose you call them. They're just great because you only need a 1/8 hole in the panel, and they hold them in there, and they hold really tight. So I'll just Cleco that in for now, and do the other side, and then once it's all gapped and I'm happy, then I can weld those plug welds where I drilled out those holes. I can weld that along there, and on the inside, weld all this in. Actually do a couple of repairs on that before I weld that in. All right, let's continue. Alright, after welding that, cleaning that all up, I welded that joint up too. So unpicked this again, and it looks really good, just like the other side. Looks like the rust was only really around here. So I'll clean that back up and start repairing here. Alright, I have the bumper bar bolted on this side. It's not tightened up yet. And I've got this plate clear coated in there. And now I can mark the bolt holes, so then I can pull that off and weld nuts to the back of it. Now it's not sitting really well because this side's sitting flat up against that plate, but this side is kicked out a little bit. So this bumper bar has seen better days. So I think it's had a hit in here somewhere, and it's kind of put a bit of a bend in there. It's got low sections, high sections, bumps and scratches and dents. I'm going to fill these holes. Low in there, big dent there. Same sort of thing on this side, huge high there. So it needs a lot of work, and yes, it would be good to file this back to a finish that the chromers can chrome, but it'll be a lot of work, and the owner doesn't really care about having chrome bumpers. And I know all the original people will hate that, but we're going to paint them. Probably the body color, we'll see. Well, we're almost at the end. Just got this last piece to put in. I've already bent it up. I've made it longer, and then I'm just going to trim it to this and drill some holes in the bottom of it, plug weld it into here, plug it into there, and then fully weld the edge, grind it smooth. But before I do that, I want to get in there and just mark the holes where this bracket goes onto. And there's a rubber mount and a bracket. And then I'm going to drill those holes in this, or in the bottom of this, out bigger. And then on this plate that I'm making, I'm going to weld some nuts on the inside. That way I can just bolt it straight up. And then the last thing to do, I said this before, is weld that up. Yeah, and flange nuts, these are the best. They're good to take on and off because they self-lock, but for welding to plates and stuff like that, just clean off that coating and then you can just fuse them. You don't need to put any wire onto it, so the heat doesn't go through to the thread and melt the thread. So that's what I always like to use as the flange nuts. All right, finally done. I'm pretty sure that is all the rust done in the car. This last little panel strengthened up the whole front. This is nice and solid now. And then I've got those nuts in there. I'll make up that bracket. We haven't actually got the bracket, so it's just a simple section, like a top hat section. I'll make that up a bit later, but for now, I've still got to do this section and that, plate that. So I just made up this panel here. Just used some 3mm and put a fair decent amount of shape on it, just to scallop that out for the alternator. I could have just straight up and down and kind of cut into it like that, but it just made it look too thin. Probably would have been fine, but yeah, I just did that. I don't know, just because I wanted to. Okay, the last section that I have to plate, clearance for the steering universals. And so I've notched out everything, plenty of clearance. I'm gonna plate this with some 3mm all the way up. There's a good 10-50mm clearance in there. 10's the minimum we need. And then this section here, I've got some thick wall tube. I'm gonna cut that this way and use it to go around this. So it's got like a nice little channel for it to sit in, and then I'll box it all in, plate it up. But I'm not going to weld it just yet. I'm going to pull the K-frame off the body and get in here and clean it all out. Vacuum, get the air blower in there, and then I'm going to blast it with some etch primer. And then I'll put it back on the car, get it in position so it's nice and strong, and then weld this section in. All right, cut that tube, tack it in, and just got the tape template all ready to go. This one I'll just take off and transfer to a flat piece of 3mm, cut that out, that'd be an easy one. This one, I might just make one piece and then another piece in there. before I put this back on, I just welded the bottom of this bit and also the bottom here, ground it back, because it was just going to be easier to do it now than trying to do it upside down. And now I bolt this back on and weld all of this section up, just so it doesn't twist and move. It'd be terrible to put heat into this section and all this get pulled out of shape, and then I won't be able to get it back in. So that's why I'll bolt this up now. And I just gave it another quick once over, sanded all this bracing in, and yeah, we're ready to go back on. And we're all done. That was a big job. It's looking good in here now. There's plenty of clearance. It's nice and strong. And now I can start putting the panels back on. Guards, valance, radiator support, the doors. I can start skinning the doors. Now I've got all the panels sitting on, door skins, it's just clear coat. I have trimmed them a bit, but I've got to trim more of the door so it sits down and wrap the doors around. But I just wanted to make sure, check the gaps, and it is very tight through here, through here. It's good on the bottom. So the main thing I've got to do is start these body lines. I've got to be straight, obviously, but I'll start there and work my way down. And I think I've got to bring this guard forward more. This is a good place to start. Driver side looks nice, it's square. As I said before, it is tight here, so it's pretty much just where this pinch is joined. You can still see the lead in there. So this is perfect there. So it's better to reshape this than to reshape the edge of the door, because I'm just going to make this look a bit funny. So I'll start here, creep this forward, yeah, work my way around. The bonnet's just sitting in there. I don't have the hinges just yet. I've got to order them. And then I can come around to this side, work my way back, same sort of thing. Looks like it needs a little bit more. This is out, so I've got to pull the guard down. It's a little bit high still. Same thing, it's good on the bottom here. It's not too bad, a bit tight there. So a lot of playing, but what I have to do is get it on some jack stands. And I've got to put the jack stands underneath the control arms there and underneath the diff. So the most important thing to do is when you gap in the car is to have it on, pretty much on its wheels. But if you can't have it on its wheels, on stands that just mimic the wheels. And yeah, the worst thing to do is to gap it on the hoist, because the front can be sagging or the back. It's going to pull it all out. So I'll put that on there. And then it's just going to be a long, tedious process, as I said before, of going around and gapping it. But first, this just arrived. And I will do a full story on this, maybe the next video or something. Tell you the history behind it and what's happening to it now. But I haven't seen this car for 5 years. All the parts have sort of rusted a bit, so I've got to clean all them up and powder coat them before I start assembling everything. I've got the motor up there, you saw it the other day in the last video. So yeah, this is the other project that I'll be doing when I'm not doing this, because there's still a lot to go on this, but I'll space it out because the motor's going to be a while. As I said, I'm going to finish gapping it, and then I'll go onto the back and the lock turned up for the hard lid, so I can finish the tailgate, finish the hard lid, put that rear wall in, and then the last thing cosmetically is to do the bumper bar. And then when the fuel pump turns up, I can finish the fuel pump, start running lines and everything, and hopefully, well, when that's all done, the motor will be back. And then there's all the stuff inside. But yeah, a lot to do, a lot to go on with, but I think I might sign off for now, and you'll see a video, probably the whole video might be gapping because it's a big thing. And yeah, and the FJ. So as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.